was alone in the garden one day, and there were some men working next door, and they were looking across, and I was over near where they were. They were putting up a fence. They asked me if they could buy some of the collards that were there. They said, well, we can't find any collards where we live. And they were real country, North Carolinians, and collards, I guess, are part of their Thanksgiving meal or any special meal. And I said, oh, you can come on around and you can take some. They couldn't believe that we were just giving them away. I said, no, we don't sell them here. You just come on around. And it was a wonderful thing, to be able to do that. That's what the garden's about, is giving of what we have.
Yeah, please help us by taking something. Salad, lettuce.
I'll take it to the
It seems natural to me that we should be involved somehow in the growing of our food, whether that's even just harvesting a little basil every week, planting some tomatoes on your back porch. It seems that all of us should have some hand in food production. But I think it's especially important for the church to be involved in agriculture at the local level, because we're in the business of feeding people. I mean, that's Christ's calling. In so much as you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to me.
Probably 90-95% of Israelites were farmers. Very few of them were well-to-do farmers. So the Bible is very concerned about the work of farmers. It sees it as a theologically significant kind of work, because that's what most Israelites were doing. They understood it as a form of wisdom, and wisdom that ultimately they learned from God. But there also was ecological degradation in the ancient world, even in biblical times. It proceeded more slowly than it does now. So they knew that in order to survive from generation to generation on their land, they had to care for it very well. So there is a surprising, what I would call, land sensitivity in the Bible.
The garden story actually began with a murder. A man was killed at his little bait and tackle store just up the road from where the garden now stands. And out of that murder came intersecting visions of two different women in the community. One, a black woman, Mrs. Taylor, had a dream where God wanted her to give 5 acres of land to the community as a way to somehow heal the wounds of that murder. Alongside that, you have Pastor Grace Hackney, a white woman who had this vision of how the church should be using land to serve the community.
I also think that life is going to be harder with peak oil, and certainly in the next generation or two, I think we will feel the effects of what we've done to both soil and water resources.
If you think about it, our entire agricultural economy is run on oil. If the oil ran out tomorrow, we'd all starve, or most of us would.
In the world, we're using so many resources that we will never be able to use again. But when we do things organically and use the earth how it's meant to be used, and let things grow how they were meant to grow, then it's going to create a higher yield, because that's how it was supposed to be done, and it's going to continue to get better and better. It's a bottomless source, basically.
To me, it's the beginning of a change. To me, it's the beginning of a different way of life, of a way of life that I didn't grow up living, but a way of life that I know inside is the way we need to move forward.
When Valley family gave the land to this church, Valley Mama had that vision. And I knew then that if his mother had that vision to give it this church, that it would work. She was being led by the Spirit.
Early on, we had a group of volunteers for youth that came out, and it was cold, and it must have been maybe even in November. And it was our first kind of official work day with Volunteers for Youth. And the ground had just been lightly kind of tilled over. And we were all out there to pull out roots and rocks. And it was muddy and it was cold. And these Volunteers for Youth, they had on like clean tennis shoes, and their shoes were getting stuck in the mud, and they would try to pull them out and their foot would come out of their shoe. And there were two girls who probably had never been in a garden or had never done any of this kind of work. One of them had this white jacket with fur around the edges and these really white tennis shoes. And they were not happy to be there, to say the least. And by mid-morning or so, they were down there pulling these roots out and falling back in the mud and just having a really good time. And these group of kids who were like, they're going to make us pull roots out of the ground and rocks, who didn't want to be there. By the time we all kind of gathered around to get some hot chocolate, everybody was laughing and happy to be there. And I think I had this epiphany that this is going to work.